A lone man, surrounded by 1,000 soldiers, picks up a donkey's jawbone from the ground. When he was done, not one was left standing. But it took just one haircut to bring him down. This is the story of Samson, and it's far bigger than you've been told. This man killed 1,000 soldiers with nothing but a donkey's bone. But the secret of Samson's strength wasn't in his muscles. It was in a promise made before he was even born. To understand it, we need to go back 40 years before that day. For 40 years, the Philistines had ruled over Israel, the longest oppression recorded in the book of Judges. Cities paid tribute, fields were plundered, and no one dared raise a sword against the enemy. The people seemed to have forgotten they were ever free. In Zorah, a small town of the tribe of Dan, lived a man named Manoah. His wife, whose name the Bible never reveals, had carried a silent pain for years. She was barren, and in that culture, that meant shame and disgrace before the whole community. Here's something curious. Throughout the whole account, Scripture never gives this woman a name. She's mentioned 17 times only as the woman or Manoah's wife. And yet, it's her, not her husband, who receives the first divine revelation. One day, alone in the field, Manoah's wife saw something no woman in Israel had ever seen before. An angel of the Lord, so radiant in appearance that she described him as fearsome to look at. He had a message meant just for her. "You are barren and childless," the angel said, "but you will conceive and give birth to a son." After years of silence and shame, that impossible promise struck her like thunder. But the angel wasn't finished speaking yet. Breathless, she ran to tell Manoah everything. A man of God had appeared, looking like an angel, and promised her a son. Manoah, disbelieving and maybe a little hurt he wasn't the one chosen, did something that reveals his character. He prayed. Manoah asked God to send the man back to teach them how to raise the child. The angel appeared again, and once more to the woman first, alone in the field. The message was clear. This boy would be a Nazirite from the womb, consecrated to God before he was even born. Being a Nazirite meant 3 strict vows. First, no razor would ever touch his head. His hair would grow free his whole life. Second, no wine, no strong drink. Not even a grape could touch his lips, from before birth until his last day. Third vow, never touch a dead body, not even a relative's. 3 simple rules. But hold on to that, because over the course of Samson's life, he'll break all 3 one by one, and the first break is closer than you think. Manoah insisted on preparing an offering and asked the visitor's name. The angel answered only, "It's too wonderful for you to understand." Then, as the flame from the altar rose toward the sky, the angel rose with it, right before the couple's stunned eyes. Terrified, Manoah fell face down on the ground, crying out, "We're going to die! We've seen God." But his wife, with a logic that still surprises scholars today, answered, "If the Lord wanted to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our offering or promised us this son." The son was born exactly as promised. His parents named him Samson, a name from the Hebrew Shimshon, meaning little son or man of the sun. No one there imagined that baby would become the strongest man in Israel's history. Samson grew up in Zorah, and the Lord blessed him. But something different began happening once he was a young man. Between Zorah and Eshtaol, the Spirit of the Lord started stirring him. An inner urge, almost physical, preparing him for something greater. Here's a visual detail few people notice. Samson had 7 braids of hair, never 7 loose locks. 7 braided strands that would never feel the touch of scissors or a razor. Each braid was a daily, physical reminder of the vow he carried. Now grown, Samson went down to the Philistine city of Timnah. There, among the vineyards and busy streets, his eyes fell on a woman, young Philistine, from the very people who were Israel's enemy. And unlike any other man of his generation, he decided on the spot. He rushed home and told his parents flatly, "I saw a Philistine woman in Timnah. Get her for me as my wife. No pleading, no hesitation." For a young Israelite of that time, this was an almost unthinkable demand, practically a family scandal. His parents were horrified. "Isn't there a woman among your relatives, or among all our people, who will do?" they asked. "Why go looking for a wife among the uncircumcised Philistines?" To them, it felt like betrayal, marrying Israel's own enemy. But Scripture reveals something the parents didn't know. This desire came from the Lord himself, who was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines ruled over Israel, and God was about to use even a marriage as a weapon of war. On the way to Timnah to settle the wedding details, Samson wandered off from his parents. That's when, among the vineyards, a young lion suddenly appeared and roared at him. Alone, unarmed, face to face with a wild predator. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and Samson tore the lion apart with his bare hands, the way someone might tear apart a young goat. No sword, no spear, no weapon at all. Just raw strength from a power he didn't fully understand yet. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. Samson never told his parents any of this. Not a word about the dead lion. He kept the secret to himself. Maybe because, even in his own eyes, that strength still seemed too great to explain. Days later, heading back for the wedding, Samson stepped off the road to look at the lion's carcass again, and he found something unexpected. A swarm of bees had settled inside it, making pure honey right among the dead animal's bones. He scooped out the honey with his hands, ate as he walked, and gave some to his parents too, without saying where it came from. It was the first of the 3 Nazirite vows nearly broken. Touching a carcass, even if it was just a lion's dry bones. Arriving in Timnah, Samson threw a 7-day feast, as was the custom for grooms. Did you know? The Hebrew word for feast literally means drinking party. The second vow, the one about wine, was already on shaky ground, and the Philistines assigned 30 men to watch him. In the middle of the feast, Samson proposed a game. "Let me give you a riddle. If you solve it within 7 days, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't, you'll give me the clothes instead." The riddle was this: out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. Only Samson knew the answer: the lion he had torn apart alone, and the honey that had formed inside its carcass. A secret hidden inside another secret. For 3 full days, the 30 Philistines tried everything and couldn't crack it. Their pride was on the line. Losing to an Israelite, and over a riddle about some mysterious honey, would be a humiliation hard to swallow. With no answer, the 30 went to Samson's wife with a direct threat. "Get your husband to explain the riddle, or we'll burn you and your father's house down." The wedding, which was supposed to be joyful, turned into mortal danger. His wife came to Samson in tears. "You must hate me. You don't really love me. You gave my people a riddle and won't even tell me the answer." That was the start of pressure that would last all 7 days of the feast. She cried in front of him throughout the 7 days of the feast, non-stop, day after day. Every meal, every night, the same tears and the same demands. Samson held out almost the whole time, but even the toughest strength has a weak spot. On the 7th day, the last one possible, Samson finally gave in and told his wife the secret. She rushed off immediately and handed the answer to the 30 Philistines, breaking, without his knowledge, the trust that should exist between husband and wife, married for barely a week. Before sundown, the men of the city answered, "What's sweeter than honey? What's stronger than a lion?" Samson knew instantly he'd been betrayed. "If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you never would have found the answer." Seized by the Spirit of the Lord, Samson went alone down to Ashkelon, a Philistine city miles away, confronted 30 men at night, and took their clothes to pay off the bet. 30 lives, the price of a riddle he never should have told. Furious at the Philistines, at the betrayal, and maybe at himself, Samson walked away from everything and went home alone to his father's house, leaving his newlywed wife behind in Timnah, with no idea what that decision would trigger in the days ahead. The bride's father, thinking Samson had rejected her for good, gave her to another man, the best man who had stood by him throughout the wedding. Samson still knew nothing about it, but when he found out what happened, his revenge involved 300 foxes. Yes, 300. Samson discovers the betrayal. His father-in-law gave his wife to the best man, thinking he'd never come back. Fury takes hold of him, but instead of attacking one man, he plots something nobody had ever seen before: a weapon made from wild animals. Did you know that foxes in the Hebrew Bible were probably jackals? They live in packs of dozens, unlike solitary foxes, which explains how Samson managed to capture 300 wild animals alone, using traps across the rocky hills of Philistia over the course of several weeks. 300 live jackals caught one by one in traps, a feat that's almost impossible for a single man. But Samson didn't just want to capture them. He had a plan far crueler and far more clever, turning every single animal into a walking torch. He ties the jackals together in pairs by the tail, and in the middle of each knot he fastens a burning torch. 150 pairs of terrified animals, bound to each other, each pair pulling in opposite directions, carrying fire straight into the heart of the Philistine harvest. And the timing wasn't an accident. It was harvest season, the one time of year when Philistine wheat was dry, stacked, and ready to burn. A strike meant to destroy not just a crop, but an entire year's economy in a single night. Samson releases the burning pairs of jackals straight into the fields. The fire spreads on its own. First the standing wheat, then the harvested sheaves, then the neighboring vineyards and olive groves. Within minutes, flames are racing in every direction, impossible to contain. By dawn, nothing was left. Wheat fields reduced to ashes, vineyards charred, centuries-old olive trees destroyed. A full year of Philistine labor gone in a single night. And the Philistines, furious, set out to find an answer. Who did this and why? The answer comes fast. It was Samson, because of the wife who was taken from him. But instead of going after the real culprit, the Philistines do something monstrous and unknowingly fulfill the exact threat the woman's family had tried to avoid with that forced marriage in the first place. The Philistines burned Samson's wife and her own father alive. The very death threat she had tried to escape by betraying her husband now comes true at the hands of her own people. The tragic irony running through the entire story of Samson. Samson learns what they did and declares war. "Since you've done this, I won't stop until I get my revenge on you." He marches out alone against an entire army and strikes them down brutally, hitting them hip and thigh, a Hebrew expression describing a ruthless slaughter. After the massacre, Samson flees to the mountains of Judah and hides in a narrow cleft in the rock of Etam, a hideout among massive boulders, hard to reach. But the Philistines don't give up. They gather an army and march into the territory of Judah. The Philistines camp in Judah and demand that Samson be handed over. And here comes the twist nobody expects. Samson's own people, the Israelites, decide to hand him over, not the enemy, his own people. 3,000 men of Judah climb the mountain to capture him. Did you know? After everything Samson did to the Philistines, his own people would rather hand him over than face the occupation. "Don't you know the Philistines rule over us?" they say. 40 years of oppression had taught them to survive by avoiding conflict, not by facing the enemy. Samson makes a strange request before surrendering. He promises he won't resist the 3,000 men of Judah, but he sets one condition: that they themselves not kill him, only hand him over bound to the Philistines. A detail that changes everything later. They tie Samson up with 2 brand new ropes, never used before, strong enough, they figured, to hold even a man of that extraordinary strength. He lets himself be bound without a fight, trusting in something his captors didn't even know existed, the Spirit of the Lord upon him. The men of Judah come down the mountain with Samson bound and hand him over to the Philistines at Lehi. When the Philistines see the Hebrew giant captured and defenseless, they let out shouts of triumph, thinking they've finally caught the enemy who burned a year's harvest to the ground. This is the exact moment everything changes. The Spirit of the Lord comes upon Samson with power. The new ropes on his arms, the very same ones that would have held any ordinary man, suddenly turn fragile, as if made of scorched flax. The ropes fall to the ground in pieces, like ashes in the wind. Samson, who moments before seemed defeated and bound, is now completely free, and an entire Philistine army, still shouting in triumph, realizes too late that the victory is no longer theirs. Samson is free with no sword, no spear, surrounded by an entire army of armed soldiers. Any ordinary man would die right there, but Samson looks around for a weapon and finds the most unlikely, most humiliating thing he could possibly use against them. On the ground, he finds the jawbone of a donkey, fresh, not yet dried out by the sun. It's not a sword, it's not a spear, it's a discarded jawbone. And it's exactly this ridiculous weapon that Samson picks up to face an army of armed Philistine soldiers. The jawbone being fresh matters, it means the donkey had died only recently. For a Nazirite like Samson, touching an animal carcass broke his sacred vow again. It was the second vow he'd violated in his life, and he doesn't even seem to care. Bone in hand, Samson advances alone against the Philistine army. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. The Philistines held a monopoly on iron in Israel. They wouldn't even let a Hebrew blacksmith work to keep them from forging weapons against them. In other words, the people who controlled iron technology, who forged swords and spears out of metal, were defeated by a man armed with a bone. The irony is so great that the biblical writers made a point of recording every detail of this impossible confrontation. 1,000 men fall before Samson's jawbone. It's not an organized battle. It's a one-man massacre against an entire army, blow after blow, amid dust and chaos, while the Philistines try to flee from something that seems impossible to stop. After the slaughter, Samson makes a Hebrew wordplay that gets lost in translation. The word for donkey, chamer, sounds almost identical to the word for heap, chomer. He declares, "With a donkey's jawbone, heaps upon heaps I struck them down." It's war poetry, rhythmic and proud, almost like an ancient rap chanted after victory. And the hook keeps going. Samson gives a name to the place where it all happened, a name the Israelites would use to tell this story for centuries to come. Samson names the place Ramath Lehi, the Hill of the Jawbone, a permanent monument carved right into the land's own name, to remember that one man alone, armed with a bone, defeated an entire army that controlled all the region's military technology. But right after the greatest victory of his life, Samson nearly dies. Not in battle, not by a Philistine sword, but from thirst. The strongest man Israel had ever seen, exhausted and dehydrated, feels like he's about to collapse right there, in the middle of the desert. It's the most human moment in the entire story. The invincible hero, capable of killing 1,000 men with a bone, nearly dies for lack of water. And for the first time in the whole narrative, Samson does something he had never done before. He cries out to God. God answers right away. He opens a hollow in the rock at Lehi, and water gushes out from inside the dry stone. Samson drinks, his strength returns, and his spirit revives. The very rock that served as a battlefield now becomes a source of life. Samson calls that place En-Hakkore, the spring of the one who cried out. And the biblical author makes a point of noting that spring still existed to this day when the book was written, physical proof that ancient readers could go visit and check for themselves. And here's an important myth to bust. Samson wasn't just a strong man cracking jokes and single-handedly wrecking armies. After these events, he takes on an official role almost nobody remembers. He becomes a judge of Israel, a recognized national leader. Samson judges Israel for 20 years, 2 full decades, most of his adult life. These aren't 20 years of constant warfare. They're 20 relatively peaceful years, a stretch of stability that the biblical text sums up in a single quiet sentence. But the peace doesn't last forever. Samson goes to Gaza, the heart of Philistine territory, and spends the night there. The Philistines find out and shut the city gates, posting guards. The plan is simple. Wait for dawn and kill him the moment he tries to leave. At midnight, Samson gets up. He goes to the city gate and does something unbelievable. He tears the entire gate off, posts, door frame, and bar all together, hoists it onto his shoulders alone without making a sound. He carries the gate uphill all the way to the hill facing Hebron, nearly 40 miles away, climbing 3,000 feet in elevation. The Philistines understood no strength could defeat that man, so they changed weapons. Her name was Delilah. In the valley of Sorek lived a woman named Delilah. Here's something curious. The Bible never says she was a Philistine, and it never says she was Samson's wife. It says just one thing, that he loved her. The only time the text ever uses that word for Samson. The 5 Philistine rulers came to her in secret. Their offer: find out the secret of his strength. Each of the 5 would pay 1,100 pieces of silver, 5,500 in total. Dozens of times what a man would earn working his entire life. For comparison, Judas received 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. Delilah received 5,500, almost 200 times more, just for the promise of information. She didn't even know the secret yet. She was already being paid as if her betrayal had already worked. Delilah agreed, and here's the detail almost nobody notices. She didn't need a trap, poison, or an army. She just needed one repeated question. What is the secret of your great strength? That was the first time she asked, and it wouldn't be the last. Before she even asked, Delilah had already hidden men in the room. Philistines crouched behind the curtain, waiting. Did Samson know? The text suggests he did. And even so, he stayed. Here begins the strangest game in the Bible. 4 lies, 4 tests. First lie: tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, and I'll become as weak as any other man. Delilah tied him up while he pretended to sleep. The hidden men held their breath. Was this finally the true answer? She could hardly wait to find out the truth. Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He got up, and the 7 bowstrings snapped like a piece of string touched by fire. They didn't even get warm. The secret was still intact. And Delilah, furious, knew she had been deceived. She didn't give up. You've mocked me, you've lied to me. Samson made up another one. Tie me with new ropes that have never been used. Second lie. The same men went back into hiding behind the curtain. Delilah tied him up again, hoping this time for the truth. The Philistines are upon you, Samson. The new ropes snapped off his arms like they were nothing but thread. No visible effort. No mark on his skin. 2 lies, 2 failed tests. And Delilah still hadn't come anywhere near the truth. But there's more. This time Delilah changed her tone. Until now you've made a fool of me and told me lies. She didn't shout, didn't threaten. She just asked the question again, one more time, with that look that made Samson lower his guard. The third lie nearly became the truth. Weave my 7 braids into the fabric on the loom. He was playing with his own secret. The braids, the symbol of his vow, almost slipping past his lips without him even realizing the real danger he was running. He woke up and pulled up the entire loom, wood, pin, and fabric, still fastened to his own hair. Third test, third lie, third failure. Delilah had now tested him 3 times with Philistines hiding in the room, and all 3 times Samson pretended not to notice a thing. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. Not once, in any of the 3 times, did Samson attack the men hiding behind the curtain. He had the strength to kill every one of them right there, but he chose to stay. This wasn't naivety. It was a man slowly handing over control of his own story. 3 lies, 3 traps, 3 times he saw the betrayal coming from a mile away and stayed anyway. But the game was nearing its end. Delilah changed her strategy. She stopped asking and started pressing him every single day without stopping, without rest. How can you say, "I love you," when your heart is not with me? The sharpest line in the whole chapter. Delilah didn't use force. She used the very word he himself had used to love her. She turned his own weapon against him. The Bible records something brutal. She pressured him day after day, without stopping, until his soul was vexed to death. Samson, the man no army could bring down, was being destroyed from the inside, word by word, day after day. Finally, he told her everything. He had been a Nazirite from his mother's womb, consecrated to God before he was even born. No razor had ever touched his head. If his hair were cut, his strength would leave him, and he'd become as weak as any ordinary man. This time Delilah could tell the difference. It wasn't a game anymore, it was the truth. She immediately sent for the 5 Philistine rulers. "Come back once more, because now he's told me everything that's in his heart." The silver was already set aside. The 5 rulers came, and each one brought the promised silver in his own hands. 5,500 pieces in total. They already knew. This time it wouldn't be another lie. The greatest warrior in Israel was about to fall because of one repeated phrase. She lulled him to sleep on her own lap. An act of intimacy turned into the final trap. The hidden men waited, silent, behind the curtain one last time. Samson slept deeply, with no idea that this would be the last night with all 7 locks intact. A man was called in to shave off the 7 braids, one by one. Notice this. Samson never cut his own hair, but he reaped exactly what he had sown. This was the 3rd vow of his Nazirite oath, and the last one. Now all 3 were broken. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He woke up and thought, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But then came the saddest line in the whole book. He did not know that the Lord had left him. Samson's strength was never in his hair. It was in God. His hair was only the visible symbol of an invisible vow. Once he broke the vow on the inside, the symbol on the outside stopped meaning anything at all. His fall had already begun before this. The soldiers overpowered him while he was still trying to understand what had happened. No strength, no braids, no chance. What came next, the Bible records in just a few words, and the silence of the text weighs heavier than any description could. The Philistines gouged out his eyes and bound him with bronze shackles. Notice the double irony. They were the people of iron, the most advanced technology of the time, but they used bronze to bind Samson, as if he no longer deserved a medal that noble. They took Samson back to Gaza, the very city where he had once torn the gates off with his own shoulders. Now he ground grain at the millstone, work reserved for animals. The strongest man in the world, blind, reduced to this. And here's the detail almost nobody notices, tucked into half a sentence in the text. The hair on his head began to grow again. The writer doesn't explain it, doesn't comment on it, he just plants that detail and moves on. Hold on to that. The 5 Philistine rulers gathered the people for a great feast. Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. They offered a sacrifice to Dagon, the fish god, convinced the victory was his doing, not Delilah's trap. The temple of Dagon was packed. Men and women filled the main hall, and up on the roof, another 3,000 people crowded in to watch the spectacle. Nobody imagined this would become the deadliest day in Philistine history. The feast was at its peak. In the middle of the celebration, someone shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." They brought him straight from the Gaza prison into the temple, blind, chained, exposed before thousands. He had once been a judge of Israel. Now he was entertainment at a pagan feast. Here's a detail that stops you cold. The strongest man the Bible ever recorded was led to the temple's central pillars by a child, a boy holding his hand. The warrior who once killed a lion now needed a young boy's hand just to take each step. Archaeologists have excavated real Philistine temples at Tel Kazal and found exactly this. 2 central wooden pillars on stone bases, about 2 meters apart, close enough for a single man to reach both at once. Samson asked the boy, "Let me feel the pillars that support this temple." He placed one hand on each. He felt the wood, the weight, the entire structure of the building resting on those 2 columns. Nobody at the feast noticed what was about to happen. Samson prayed. It was only the second prayer of his ever recorded in the whole Bible. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, strengthen me just once more, so that I may pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes." And God heard him. "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed against the 2 central pillars with all the strength that had returned to him. The entire temple structure began to give way. Stone, wood, and roof crashing down on the thousands of people inside and up on the roof. Here's the most shocking fact in the whole book. Samson killed more Philistines in his death than in his entire life, including the 5 rulers who had betrayed him. His family recovered his body and buried him in his father Manoah's tomb. He had judged Israel for 20 years. The man who broke every vow shows up in Hebrews 11, in the gallery of heroes of faith. If God used even Samson's mistakes, what can't he do with your story? Tell me in the comments below. Subscribe and come along for the next story.